What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back today with more, of course, Danmachi. Now, we have 2 new banners incoming tonight, and we're going to discuss these, and whether or not these are good, wise investments at the moment. But first, let's talk about what these units do, okay? We talked a little bit about it yesterday, but we're going to go into it today with a little more depth, okay? So, we're going to start off with, of course, the Woven Fang banner. This is a new bet unit. These are not time-limited units, which means they're going to go in the general pool after all this. And he has 3981 HP, which is really good. 2121 physical attack, which is also extremely good. 547 endurance, which is not bad at all. And 1180 agility, which is really good. Not the best by a long shot, but really, really good. But here's the deal with that. Those agility numbers only means so much at this point, because as you guys know, with his passive, he's going to buff agility 35%, and he usually buffs it, I believe with the skill 1 here. Skill 1 has a 64 MP cost, self, strength, agility, and fire attack damage 60%. Okay, so the thing to remember here is, while that number seems pretty low, he's going to get a 35% from his passive and another 60% from his skill 1, so that number is going to skyrocket. He is a speed demon once he gets that off. Now, once again, we do have faster units in the game. That is the reality. He will not be the fastest unit on your team by any stretch of the imagination ever, but he will be a solid unit all the way around the board. Now, and those buffs are for 4 turns, by the way. And a foe's plural fire resist down 40%, so he does debuff fire resistance and single target damage taken plus 25%. So there's an additional debuff on top of that. Both of those for 4 turns. So the things you got to remember, he does self buff 60%, both strength, agility, and fire attack. Then he does fire attack damage down 40%, which is something we would usually put on a sack skill. And he does single target damage 25%, which is something else we'd usually put on a sack skill. So he's got literally everything you could want in a unit's build right here, right now. So absolute worst case scenario, if you have a fire team, this dude would be an amazing sack. He's going to sack for both single target damage and fire resistance. He is going to be phenomenal in that regard, and those are all AoE skills. Now, he also does 3 additional actions on this turn. Foes, plural, low fire physical attack, single target damage plus 40% per foe being per unit that he's attacking at that time, single target damage taken debuff. So, in other words, it's an AoE hit that hits for whatever that foe's, basically everybody on the board has a single target debuff. It's weird because it's an AoE attack that uses the single target debuff, but it is an AoE attack, and yes, it does use a single target debuff. It's weird. Will that stack with the AoE debuff? I do not know. I'm going to guess so, but that is not a question that I expressly know the answer to. But here's where his build gets a little weird, because skill 2 is a 106 MP cost, foe singular, super fire physical attack with ultra penetration rate, skill damage 60% per foe fire resistance debuff, and foe shortened status debuffs by 2 turns. So basically what he's going to do is he's going to come in with a skill 2, right? He already debuffs fire resistance down 20%, or 40%, I'm sorry. So he's going to get 60% of that. And if you have, or 60% more damage because of that, if you have an assist doing fire resistance debuffs, which you should anyway, he's going to hit even harder. He's going to hit 60% harder. So it's a 120% hit. Here's the downside of this. You will almost, in very rare circumstance, be able to spam this. Now, there are situations where you could, but you've got to give him a ton of MP. You've got to give him multiple MP regen buffs, and because that's going to be a stupidly expensive MP attack to use. In fact, there's almost no situation where it's going to be cost effective because of all the assists you're going to have out there in play to keep his to keep his MP basically high enough to spam that. So basically, it's kind of a one and done. Once you hit it, You back off of it for a couple of turns, rebuild your MP, hit it again, back off of it for a couple of turns. This is going to be a stupid, and I mean stupid powerful attack in Record Buster. This is going to be insane in Record Buster. But like I said, you're not going to be able to spam it. Now, notice the first skill does have some AoE elements to it, but predominantly that's kind of... There's not very many situations in which you're honestly going to use that. Now, it will hit hard, and it will hurt your opponent, but it's not going to be his biggest hit. It's a strange build. An effective build, but a strange build. Now, his skill 3 is 45 MP cost, super fire physical attack with ultra critical rate, skill damage 40% per self fire, and strength and fire attack damage buff. So that's 40% becomes 80%, becomes 80%, then becomes 120%, then becomes 160%. So it's a 160% attack damage. And I don't know, I'd have to really run the numbers on this. I don't know if Memoria counts on this regard. Because if it does, then that even gets harder. And I've talked about, there are 3 stats, and I thought it was the extra skill from, extra actions from the assists. It's actually not the case. Extra actions from the assists, which we'll get to in a moment, seem to just affect like normal buffs and debuffs. What I'm talking about is, if you ever go into a fight, you'll see an extra skill there, and it's going to be based on either you're going to have the buff debuff, you're going to have Memoria buff debuff, and then you're going to have assist buff debuff. So there's Adventure, Memoria, and Assist. So whether Memoria counts in this, I honestly do not know. I kind of don't think so, just because the way Memoria works, but I could be wrong in that regard. And that could be one of the reasons that units are hitting just insanely hard these days. So, as of right now, I'm going to err on the, and if maybe somebody's actually crunched the numbers on this, I do not know whether that's working or not. So if somebody's crunched the numbers on this, let me know in the comments section. But at the moment, I'm just going to say 180 will be his max. And that's going to be a really silly, insane hit. I'm sorry, 160. That's going to be a really silly, insane hit. And that's something he can spam. So he's going to be a strong unit. Now, his SA is a foe singular ultra fire physical attack with ultra critical rate, scale damage 25% per self, strength, magic, endurance, agility, and dex buff. Now, that's not going to include any passives he's got. Those would have to be active buffs on him. Now, we know he's going to strength, magic, and agility, but then you'd have to have endurance and dex. Now, if you have the new Haruhime, she, I believe, does all that. The Wind Haruhime, I said new. She's been around for almost a year now, but if you have Wind Haruhime, she will buff all that. And he does allies shorten strength, magic, endurance, agility buffs by 2 turns. But honestly, by the time you use this, you shouldn't be harmed by that at all. Basically, the whole thing is he's going to hit really hard on skill 2 and with his SA, and he basically is made so that it's not something you could spam. It's basically made to have like enough of a downside that it debuffs enough that you're not going to want to use a turn, the turn following that. You could if you play your cards right, but not very likely, not very easily. But a really, really wild and crazy unit, and a unit I definitely want in my basically in my possession. I'll discuss here in a moment my kind of take on all this, but first let's talk about Lena. Now, minor spoiler. No, I'm not even going to go into it. I'm not even going to go into it because somebody already spoiled it in the other the other one. I missed the comment, and sorry guys if you got the spoiler. But this Lena unit is interesting, to say the least. Okay, she is an assist, and she does a lot of what her adventure counterpart does. Now, allies: agility, dex, and endurance plus 15%. And one instant effect, when attacked, allies SA gauge charge 33%, dex and endurance plus 20%. Now, here's the deal. I honestly don't know. And just because I lack the general knowledge. I've not done enough general research on this to know how that affects, if that effect goes on as a buff. I'm going to guess it goes on just as an adventurer buff. I'm going to gather. but I honestly do not know. Initially, I thought these were where the Memoria showed up, but after the big UI update, I actually see that that's Memoria, not this. So this is an interesting situation. Those buffs do last for 4 turns. I don't know if they're buffs that you can actually extend. I will have to do some extensive testing with these units to figure out if that is the case or not. If somebody once again knows, post in the comments, and if you answer both questions, you're instantly going to get a pin. Just quick and easy way to get a pin. Fact check your old boy. But the in a way that I appreciate. Be gracious. But the honest answer is I don't know how this affects, and that is going to be the big decision maker on this unit. Now, she will be a general pool unit. You will be able to pull her whenever after the fact. But the honest answer is I do not know how this is going to affect her unit in the meantime. So if this is an adventurer's skill, if this actually winds up being an adventure skill, I will have to do some testing on this to make my final decision as to how good she is or not. If it's an adventurer buff, that basically means you could take the Lena units that you were normally running on the front side of your team off. The downside is I don't know what you would put there, because a lot of times anymore, those units really have a really good space. I'm going to gather that's probably what they're doing, is they're making the other Lena units a little less viable. Plus, remember, the Wind Harahime does this too. So I don't know this is super useful now, but down the road this might be a critical game-changing unit. I just don't know, because the problem is you've got to sack this unit. You got to find a place in your assist lineup to put her, and the only time I could really see that being effective is if you have a unit that does elemental damage buff or debuff, along with a single target or AoE damage buff. So it's or debuff in that case. It's a really rare, weird situation. She could be game changing at some point. I'm just not seeing it at the moment. But who knows? 6 months from now, she might be a stellar, insane, must-have unit. Here's the problem. How many of you out there have 4,000 Iris to blow to find out what is going to be the case further down the road? I know I sure don't. I'm not sitting on very much Iris at all, and we've got the anniversary coming up soon. So it's a rugged situation. My honest answer is, if you can do it, skip for now, or maybe just go I'm going to do one and done the banner, because I really want Bet, but I want Bet as a sack unit. Bet would be an amazing Record Buster unit, don't get me wrong. For those people that have him for this upcoming Record Buster, you're going to love life. This upcoming Record Buster is going to be all about Bet and all about, I think, the old Tiona. I think the Tiona from last year. I think those two units are going to be monstrous in this upcoming one. I could be wrong. Maybe they go a whole different direction with it. But I think those two units are going to be nutty. Now, here's the deal. I'm doing one and done. I'm going to hope to get both. If I do get both, then I can test her. But if I don't, we kind of run into a weird situation. So the other half of that is because she is 33%. If you have the Finn unit, or if it happens on the action side, the adventure side, if you have one of the other Lenas or you have Wind Harahime, it's going to be extremely hard to tell how those buffs affect. So what I might do tonight is try to get one of her and then test her out and see how it works out. It might be a really interesting test. But for most people, I would say until further notice, at least be cautious. And I might come back and make a video where I recover this unit, because I'm very curious about how effective she's going to be now versus how effective she might be, 6 months from now. Once again, when Finn dropped, I told everybody instantly. We knew that unit was going to be game breaking. When you needed him, you had to have him. With this being an instant action, I'm going to gather it probably is on the adventure side, but I really just don't know until I get the testing out there, or until somebody corrects me in the comments and we have corroboration. So you guys let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. Now, as far as her numbers go, 1054 for HP isn't the end of the world. Neither is 414 for physical. 596 for agility is stellar. And remember, for sack units, a lot of that speed is what really matters. So you don't really need HP. You really don't really need physical attack. Having this agility number on your sack unit is going to mean so much more. So in a situation where you're in like a fire AoE, circumstance, and let's say you're running Bet on the front line or the back line or wherever, you're running Bet just as a sack on slot 1, slot 2, or turn 1, turn 2. Let's sake of argument situation. He comes in here, he does his foes, fire resist down 40%, single target down 25%, and he gets attacked. That means that she's going to effectively put SA gauge charge 33%, Dex and Endurance plus 20% on all allies. Now, if Bet stays in the game, then I'm going to gather he probably would keep that Endurance and Dex buff, but I just don't know on which side. But once again, it's a weird, strange situation, so we're going to have to figure it out. I'm going to be honest with you guys. For me, on this banner, I'm going to go one and done. I'm going to do the first draw. It's guaranteed 4-star, and then I'm going to walk away with whatever I get. I am tempted to go after her just to see, but I'm going to kind of like, hate to say, like, hopefully get both on the first draw. I know it's infinitesimal, but that would be the ideal. And then walk away and see what we get. But if nothing else, I do want Bet. So I'm one and done on this, honestly. If I were anybody else, while we're not doing testing, one and done, get Bet as a sack for your fire team and walk away, because I think he is going to be game-changing for the fire team. Her, I don't know. And that's kind of where I've been trying to ponder this, and I just can't wrap my brain around it. It 100% comes back to how she works. Let's talk about Lena and Riveria, okay? So Riveria is an interesting unit here. 3643, which makes her a little tiny bit squishy, but she is magic, so that's not the end of the world. 3700 is about average for magic. 487 isn't a great stat for endurance, but once again, like I said, magic units aren't as rugged as physical units are. 1191, though, for her agility is really, really, really stellar. And 2011 for her magic is exceptional. Exceptional. Now, what did she do? Skill 1 is a 47 MP cost, foe singular, super fast super earth magic attack with ultra penetration rate, skill damage plus 60% per self magic buff. Also, I didn't mention it, but both her and Bet are insect killers. I didn't mention that on Bet. I don't think I went over Bet's passives, but he is wind resist, encounters our fire physical attack, as you would guess. Strength, agility, dex, I did cover 35%. 20% damage on critical and penetration, and 60% damage on counter, which is insane for him. That's kind of average. I hate to say that's average, but that's about what we normally see with physical units these days. Skill 1 for Riveria is a 46 MP cost, foes plural. Foes singular. Sorry, foes singular. Is a fast super earth magic attack with ultra penetration rate, skill damage plus 60% per self magic buff. So in other words, basically your normal skill 3 is her skill 1. So she's kind of built upside down and backwards. Skill 2 for her is a 46 MP cost, foes plural mid-earth magic attack with ultra penetration rate, skill damage plus 60% per self-earth attack damage buff. I forgot how that. And self-earth attack damage plus 90%. So, unfortunately, she does have to get this attack off before she gets the buff. So really, turn 1, she's going to get earth attack damage 90%. Turn 2, she's going to get that 60%. Probably, honestly, she'll get 60% on the first turn because you're going to buff Earth anyway on the assist side. So on the first turn, she does a skill turn. Let's probably going to say, I have to go look at skill 3, but let's just say for the sake of argument, turn 1, she gets 60% and a 90% Earth attack damage buff. That means turn 2, she's going to get 120% with a 90% Earth attack damage buff. Now skill 3, because I don't remember from yesterday, 65 MP cost, foes plural high Earth magic attack with ultra encounter rate, and allies magic and penetration rate plus 50% for 4 turns, and foes remove magic resist and AoE attack damage taken buffs. Okay, so any magic resistance or AoE attack damage taken, that means like any kind of like, if they have one of the skills that's like a, AoE attack damage minus 25%, or any magic resistance, it's gonna wipe those away. So really good skill. Basically, the way you're gonna kind of use this is you're gonna probably want to hit with skill 2, then skill 3, then go back to skill 2, because that skill 2 is gonna hit insanely hard, But you're gonna want that magic and penetration rate. In fact, you could do skill 3 then skill 2, but that high earth probably would take. It probably skill 2, skill 3, skill 2, just because you want that earth buff before you do it. It's a weird build. It's definitely a strange build. Is she mandatory? I don't see any situations where she's going to be absolutely crucial. She will be, because of her skill 2, she's going to be really good in Wargame, but she's kind of built strangely, and she doesn't have extra actions, which means, there's not a really clear-cut way to set her to work in Wargame. And she's an interesting unit, don't get me wrong. I just don't know if she's the end of the world for me. SA is foes, plural, Ultra Earth magic attack with ultra penetration rate, great temporary magic boost, allies magic plus 120%, which is exceptional. And I said this yesterday, I love the fact that we now have units that are getting this magic 120%, so you don't have to use Haruhime. You can then use units that actually do a major attack instead of just a buff on their on the SA skill. So if you're running an all-magic team, she's going to be indispensable. But you kind of have to run her on an all-magic wind team for her to really be at her... Earth team for her to really be at her best. I just don't honestly see it. And for that reason, I think she's good, but I don't think she blows me away in any way. Not enough to say, month and a half out of anniversary, go crazy for this unit. I think she's going to be a fun one when you finally do pull her. Maybe, depending upon how the anniversary goes. But I honestly, maybe I'm underrating her. Maybe it's just because I'm not as adept with Wargame as I am with Record Buster. But the honest answer is she's not blowing me away by any stretch. So I'd say for her alone, probably banner skip. 35% Thunder Resist counters our Earth Magic Attack, 35% Magic Agility and Dex, 5% MP and HP regen per turn, 25% damage on penetration, and she is once again an insect killer. Let's talk about Lena. Okay? So, Lena. Affectionate Bloom Lena. So, once again, 1030 for HP isn't blowing me away. 638 for Magic, however, is really good. And 405 for Agility isn't terrible, isn't amazing, but it's definitely not a bad skill. What does she do with her skills? Foes, plural, Earth, resist, and guard rate down 20%, and allies 100%. That's 10%. 100% poison resistance. So, if you have an Earth team and you don't have anybody that's a 20% resistance, she's a good unit for you. But I'm going to be honest, once again, guys, we are 6 weeks-ish, 6 to 7 weeks outside of the JP anniversary, the 5th anniversary, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, at this point, I'm saving. There's one banner and one banner only that I'm going to hit really hard, at least. Go all the way in before the anniversary drops, at least for the foreseeable future. That could change, but for the foreseeable moment, I just don't see myself going in on anything but this banner right here. Now, this banner's not dropping this week. This banner's dropping next week. We'll do a refresher. But this banner drops next Thursday, okay? And the best thing about this banner, if you notice, first draw is free. Second draw is full price but guaranteed 4-star. Every even draw, in fact, is full price but guaranteed 4-star. And 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th draws are all half price. That means this is a $2,800 investment. Or $2,800. Wow, that really sounds like a bargain of the century, doesn't it? 2,800 Iris investment. Wow. Don't go $2,800 in on this banner, I assure you. 2,800. I should edit that out, but I'm not going to. 2,800 Iris investment. It's a really good value compared to the other banners. Remember, they're all 4,000 to go all the way in for all 10 pulls. And with only 2 units on here, you have higher odds. Now, there are 2 units on the other banners as well, but those are 4,000 per banner. You're talking an 8,000 Iris investment versus a 2,800 Iris investment. And more, like, the other ones have, let's see, let's go over here to Bet's banner. 4 guaranteed slots. First, 4th, 7th, and 10th are the only guaranteeds. Whereas we have 5 guaranteeds over here. Yeah, so it's only one more, but at the same rate, you know, with the half prices and all that. It is better odds. I say as last time I got completely shafted on it. Now, here's the other thing to remember here. Ashuna is brand new CP. So even if you're one and done and you get Ashuna, you're definitely on the upside of this banner. This unit, if you like go in here, you do your freebie, you get Ashuna, or even let's say you do the first guaranteed 4-star and you get Ashuna because you didn't get it on the freebie, you're in great, great, great shape. Because remember, all told, she's worth at least 450 to maybe even more, depending upon how many units you have in your repertoire. Iris, free-to-play Iris, just in CP alone. Not to mention any upgrades you do to her and all that stuff. Getting her to level 60 is worth another 30 and stuff like that. So this unit could pay out a decent amount. I mean, at least repay, if not more so, the Iris debt you incur going into this banner. So Ashuna is actually worth going after no matter what her skills are. But let's take a look here. 3861 for a physical unit isn't amazing, but it isn't bad. 2141 for physical attack, though, is phenomenal. 738 for endurance. And I talked about this yesterday. As soon as you see an endurance stat that high and agility stat this low, you're talking about a tank. This unit is built to withstand some damage, some major damage. Okay? So, what a phenomenal unit. Let's talk about her skills, because I think if you don't have Otarl, if you don't have Gareth, if you don't have one of those tank units, you've got to get Ashuna. Okay? Skill 1 is a 60 MP cost, foes plural, super fire physical attack with ultra critical rate. Ultra on counter rate. Ultra on counter rate. And foes plural remove AoE damage taken reduction buffs. In other words, any minus, just like we talked about before, any minus AoE damage taken buff on your opponent is removed. And foes, plural, fire resist down 40% for 4 turns. And self, strength and fire attack damage plus 70%. Remember I talked about I like that with Bet, except Bet does that and single target. Bet would be like a Record Buster sack. I mean, obviously, if I have him all the way, if I go all the way in for him, I'm going to use him on Record Buster. But I just don't think I'm going to do it this time. I know it's going to kill my score, but at the same rate, it's good. I like that 40% fire resist. So if you actually go after Ashuna before you go after Bet, for whatever reason, say you're waiting on the Lena video and it takes me a week to put it out, as sometimes might wind up being the case, like with their EX missions. Shame on me. So she would have that skill, she just wouldn't have the single target damage, and you wouldn't use her for single target anyway. So absolute worst case scenario, she's a great fire resistance debuffer. Yes, there are other 40% units out there, I'm aware. But if you need one, here's an easy one to acquire. Now, strength and fire attack damage 70% means she's going to hit really, really, really well. Skill 2, here's where it gets interesting. 69 MP cost. Nice. Self. Slow. Physical resist and magic resist plus 60%. Now, because it's a slow skill, it's going to happen pretty much at the end of the turn. She has really low agility, and it is a slow skill. Do not expect this to happen at the beginning. Physical resist and magic resist plus 60% for 5 turns, and self remove status debuffs and 3 additional actions, foes plural, mid-fire physical attack with high penetration rate, and self 30% HP heal. Now here's the deal. You can't rely on this basically until turn 3. So, unless you skip that, I don't know how you would build her to do it. There might be a way to build her to do it. I don't know. But actually, if you set her to heal, she probably would do skill 2 over. She would probably spam skill 2 if you set her to heal in Wargame. And of course, we're talking because she's an AoE unit Wargame. But here's the deal. She would never, ever, ever take damage. She wouldn't produce damage either, but she would never take damage. So if you have this unit and you want to use her as a tank, set her to heal. She'll do skill 2 only. She won't do damage, but she definitely will never, ever, ever, ever die. Skill 3 with her is a 41 MP cost foe singular high fire physical attack with Ultra on guard rate, skill damage 70% per self-strength buff. And I've talked about how much I love it when they put big percentages on single targets of AoE units. That means she's going to be good in either Record Buster or War Game. She's not going to be mind-blowing in Record Buster, but she will be good. SA is Ultra Earthfire physical attack. Foes plural, Ultra Earthfire physical attack with Ultra on guard rate, so it's an AoE attack. Skill damage 70% per foe, fire resistance debuff, and self strength and fire attack damage plus 90%. So while she's not going to be the best, if you get that buff off early, she will clean house for quite a bit of time. I don't know that there's too many situations in which I would probably do that, to be honest, but there might be like a Record Buster situation. There are a couple Record Buster situations I could specifically see that happening in, but that's more built for War Game. Even if you don't do skill 1, if you just set her to heal and you spam skill 2, if you actually have her do the SA, she's going to do that big attack, she's going to do that big buff, and she is going to absolutely clobber them when she comes back in. It's going to be brutal. 35% wind resistance counters are fire physical attack, 35% strength, endurance, and dex. Notice no agility there. Strength, endurance, and dex. Once again, she's built as a tank. 20% damage on critical and penetration, 10% HP regen per turn on top of the 30% is nutty. And she's an insect killer, which means I'm sure there's going to be insects in the coming Familia Royale. If you didn't see yesterday's video, Familia Royale is incoming. This unit is really good. Not mind-blowing. If you have Otaro, great. If you have Gareth, great. If you have Gross, great. Imagine a line of 4 of them, though. Just say it. Just say it. In the right build, she probably will, like Otaro, take little to no damage. I like this unit a lot. I really like this unit a lot. Self strength and penetration rate plus 25%. Fire attack damage and wind attack damage plus 20%. Once again, if you do not have fire and wind attack damage 20%, this is a great opportunity to acquire them on an extremely inexpensive banner to attack. Let's go over to her skills real quick because I forgot to grab her skills. She almost looks like a cheerleader here. It's cheerleader eyes. Except you go over here and it's clearer than that. 850 HP isn't great, but 619 physical is really good. And 410 agility, once again, nothing to write home about, but not bad at all. It is still an S-class stat. So, if you do not have a 20% fire attack damage buffer, she's really good. She also does strength attack damage and penetration rate plus 25%. So whoever you have her tied to is going to get that. Here's the thing. Here's the big downside to her. And I just happened to notice this because I'm so used to these being written the other way. The fire attack damage and the wind attack damage are only to whoever she's tied to. This only works for a wind unit or a fire unit that she's attached to. The good news is, the really good news is, in like a war game situation where maybe you have Ashuna and you have her on a lineup with a bunch of units that are not fire units, she'll buff her, or a wind unit like Ridari. That's not a fire unit. She'll buff him, but it is only a self buff. That is the one big downside. She's not going to... It would be really nice if it was a strength and penetration rate 25% to whoever she's tied to. And then fire attack damage, wind attack damage to all allies 20%. Or fire attack damage and wind attack damage 25% for self. That would be a really good buff. But unfortunately, it is only 20% to self. So it's not end of the world stuff. But she's kind of designed to use Ashuna in situations where Ashuna wouldn't otherwise be buffed. So, an all magic team where she's just like the token physical unit, or an all wind team where she's the token fire unit or something like that. That's pretty much the main functionality. So eyes isn't really all that important. It's really Ashuna. You got to have Ashuna. And I'm probably going to put Ashuna with a couple of our units that improve tanks. And I got news for you. This unit is not it. So I like Ashuna greatly. I kind of have lost my interest in eyes. I think eyes has been done. But here's the deal with this banner, guys. On top of it being so inexpensive to hit and being so many guaranteeds, you also have the heroic trial that comes with it, where you are guaranteed to get a free bond for this unit. So here's the deal, or one of the two units. I would honestly say Ashuna is a much better unit to get the bond for. Normally I say go for the assist. But here's the deal, guys. These units are all time limited. So they're get them now or don't get them at all. My goal in this banner, and again, the drops next week, is to max out Ashuna. But I'm prepared to go all 2800 deep on this banner. And you should probably be prepared too. So if you're asking me which banner to hit, one and done, skip, and all 2800. That's my 2 cents. Now, if you choose to disagree with me or if you have any of the information I asked for, definitely comment down below. But for now, like, comment, share, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye.